Hey, happy Sunday, everybody. So this is going to be the watch list for Monday, April 7th. And what I do want to point out real quick before we get into the charts is we do have some economic news coming up this week. First and foremost is going to be on Wednesday and Thursday. We have CPI, the Consumer Price Index, as well as PPI, the Producer Price Index. And both of those are going to be really good indicators as to what's going on with inflation and then how likely is the FOMC going to be in reducing rates. Well, on Thursday of last week, you'll see this huge bearish engulfing candle that literally took out the entire market in a moment's notice based upon the fact that Neel Kashkari, the Fed governor from Minnesota, said that he doesn't even know if there's going to be a need to cut rates at all in 2024. And needless to say, as soon as the market heard that news, everybody sold in a moment's notice. And this is one of those great examples where I constantly say, you will make more money on the way down than you do on the way up. And why is that? Because when fear sets in to the market, the volatility of options contracts literally goes through the roof. So now what happened on Friday? We had a nice rebound and then started to taper off more toward the market close. So the one thing as we're looking at SPY, I do want to call your attention to here is that we were prior in a nice uptrend, right? So the market was trending up. Well, we have now broken that trend. So we constantly had higher highs where the market's moving higher, and then we closed on a lower high, and now we're actually lower again. So what would I watch if I want to go long, or am I going to go short? Well, first and foremost, you might have to be a little bit more patient on the market open to give it some breathing room of 5 or 10 minutes. So what I would look for is, because again, we had this huge sell-off, again, a nice rebound, kind of a tepid close. I'm going to do a fib level from a pivot high to a pivot low. And what I want to watch is, how does the market react in this golden zone? So are we able to hold 518 and then break above 519? If that's the case, I would go long to 521 and then possibly this prior high of 523. Now, if we can't hold this 518 level, which has been a source of strength in the past, I think we're definitely going back lower, back down to this 512 and change. So why do I say that? Well, we're always going to want to look left, right? So if we just look left to these candlestick highs as to where the market kept rejecting, note it lines up almost perfectly with that 50% fib retracement level. So if we can't hold this 518.22, 518.18, I think we're definitely headed back lower. If we can maintain it, then I would have my first target of 521.43 and then back to the prior pivot high of 523.86. Let's go ahead and take a look at the QQQ. Again, we were in an uptrend and now we have broken that, and we are now starting to actually move a little bit sideways. I'm going to do the exact same thing with this. You'll note that we did have some overall strength down here at this 433 level where we were consistently bouncing off of it. Back here in February, we bounced again here in March. We bounced here again later in March, and then toward the end. And now we're somewhat between these prior highs where we were up at the top and then now coming back down. So how would I want to look at this and think about this? Well, I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm a big fan of fib levels. I think they're telltale signs as to how much did the market get back of a retracement and could it be headed lower. So again, we have a fib level here of about 440. Excuse me. Want to see if we're able to hold this 440. If we can't, I definitely think that we're going to push lower. If we can, again, hold the golden zone between 440 and 442, then I would go target 444, and then I would probably only come back up to this pivot high, where you can see that we pushed up, we came down, we opened, we pushed up before we flushed, okay? So those are going to be your targets that you're going to want to watch. On the low side, back to the breakdown. Again, I would go back to where did we start to build a base? which was this 435 level. And then if we break that down to 433. Let's take a look at a couple of the individual names. So the first one that I'm going to look at is Amazon. I called out Amazon last week where I thought it would have some real relative strength pushing up into 185. And boy, did we hit that nail on the head. So not only did Amazon flush with the market, it made all of that back and actually pushed and closed higher. So what I want to do is I'm going to look at this on a daily basis, and we're going to go back in time to see where we possibly headed to. And I think still that these all-time highs are probably in play, right? Where we're pushing back up to 187 and change. So what would I look for on this? Well, I'd really like us to have a little bit of a pullback to where we found some prior support, which is down here toward the 180 level. I don't know that we're going to get that. So what would I want to maybe consider in the inverse for a long entry? Well, again, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to take a pivot low this time to a pivot high to say, can we get a retest of the 50% fib to the downside? So will Amazon hold 183.05? And then if so, and you can make sure that your support in the golden zone to the downside, I definitely think we push higher. And then where would I go? To 186. And then after this 186, above 187, and then start to target higher into 190. The next one that I want to look at is Meta, another one, tremendous strength, where flush with the entire market made it back up and then some, and now we are pushing higher. Same thing with Meta, though. These are all-time highs. They've had really good analyst ratings. The momentum has just been insane, but I would look for the exact same thing, right? Can we get a pullback on the 50% fib to about 520? And then if you can hold this 520 zone, definitely going back long. And then where would I head back to? These prior highs, 530. If we get above 530, then I would target 540. So I like to use psychological levels, 530, 540, 550, or in $5 increments on the way up. But ideally, a great long position for this will be to see if we can get down to 520, or wait till we get up to 530. Does it reject back down, and then an entry to go long? Let's take a look at our next one. I want to look at AMD. Chip sector was super, super strong. And then, wow, what a huge sell-off this one has had, right? And there might be an opportunity here, but let's go back and look at where it was. I mean, it was just all the way up at literally 227. We are now trading down here at 165. I mean, that is a remarkable drop over the past month, okay? So it just goes to show when a sector is hot, it can move up, but it can trend down just as quickly. So we are in a downtrend on this. I'm going to look at it from a little bit of a higher time frame where you can kind of see, are we finding some overall support? And I would say that we're going to have support around this 162 level. 160, 162 has been strong. We'll look at it on an overall 4-hour. You'll see that we came down, we bounced here, we bounced, we've held it for several days before we pushed up higher. So what do I like with AMD? Well, again, I'm going to do a fib from a high to a low. I want to see if we can get back up to this 174, and then I would watch this 174 possibly for a reject back down to the 160s, depending upon if the market is strong or weak. But right now, you're really in between levels, and you closed it about 170. So I would watch to see, do we get a little bit of strength and then a push back lower. But overall, this is now in a downtrend, and you're going to want to wait till we start to break these prior pivot highs before you probably want to put on any real money to go long at the 180 level, and then targeting the 190s and then the 200s. But I don't know, with earnings coming up, if the market's going to have that much juice in it to push this back up, but we'll see. So I'd look for 174 and then possibly a reject back lower. Next one I want to look at is Tesla. A ton of news on Tesla lately. Really disappointing order deliveries. I mean, just huge. Look at these huge sell-offs. 1, 2, 3 days in a row. I mean, you've just had massive gaps down. Now, the interesting thing is after hours, this thing is gapping up significantly. So we're going to want to watch and see what's happening Monday morning. And are we going to have a long entry or are we going to have a short entry? So to the short side, again, I think there's a ton of support in the 160 range, and then possibly a long play up to 177. Again, this is really hard when you're between zones like this to really say, well, where is it headed? You can probably catch a short up here at 177, maybe 175, or you could probably catch a long down here somewhere in the 160s. But I think you definitely have an opportunity, kind of the same thing. Let's just take a fib level to see what does this look like for a possible bounce at 168 to go long. Or I would wait for it to push up to 177 and then look for a short. And then the last one I want to look at real quick is just Apple. I've left my prior zones on here. No real reason to move them or change them. And that's the nice thing about charting. Once they're there, you just wait for your price level to hit. So let's see, Apple definitely sold off with the entire market. A little bit of a rebound on Friday. And just for fun, let's just take a pivot from the high to the low and look at what Apple did. So Thursday, if you were going to go long on Friday, all you had to do is play it right up to the fib level. And then what did it do at 170.35? Touches, rejects, touches, rejects, touches, flushes to the downside. So where is their support? We know it's in this green zone, somewhere between 168 and 167. But if we break this, I definitely think we're going lower to 165, then down to 164, and these numbers will remain. So right now, again, we are trading between where we have support and a reject on the fib level. So this is probably going to be a no touch on Monday until you see what it does. If we come down here to the 168, possibly go long, push back up to the 170, might want to watch it for another short. But Apple's just kind of been chopping around in this range, not really finding any momentum to the upside or to the downside. So with that, hopefully you found this highly beneficial and educational. And with that, guys, I hope you have an amazing week trading. And as always, if I can answer any questions, just shoot me an email. We'll talk to you all soon. Take care.